Welcome to Ask Alfie. This is the segment where we answer your questions that you've submitted. And I'm in studio with Coach Alfie Townsend, Southwest Florida's financial planner. Alfie, it's great to see you today.
Hey, it's, you know what, this is a great topic right here. Ask Alfie, and we get a lot of questions, don't we?
You sure do, because a lot of people have things on their mind that they want to talk about. And the first question is, I'm considering the purchase of an annuity with some of my savings, but the idea of losing some control of that money makes me a little bit uneasy. Do you find many people wishing that they had more control of their money after getting an annuity?
Well, that's a very good question, because usually annuities are going to be a long term. Now, if you want something of a short term, like a 5-year annuity, you can get those also. But you do lose control typically with an annuity, but they do give you 10% free out. So if you have money setting aside and you want to have 10% free available, you can do that. I use annuity a little bit different. I use it for very, very long term, because I use it for lifetime income. So we don't worry about if we lose control of it or not, because it's only a small piece of the puzzle that we do. We're not going to try, if you put everything in it, then there'd be a big time concern. But usually if you put a small amount in there and use it properly, you're not worried about using that money for in and out.
Okay, so they're not going to lock up all of their finances in that annuity. You are going to put it into some other vehicle that will give them access to it if they need it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what happens when you do a full financial plan, John, you might have part of it in an annuity, you might have part of it in the portfolio. And if you have a little bit in the annuity, what happens in the portfolio, you can have a little bit more stock equity part of it, because you have that annuity as like a bond alternative. So you have that money there usually to create some type of income, but then your liquidity and your fighting inflation is from your portfolios that we'll put together for them.
That's great. All right, well, our second question is, I've talked to 2 different financial advisors about the likelihood that I can comfortably retire at age 55, which is only 5 years away. One of them says I should work longer. The other says that I can go ahead and retire at 55. I was originally inclined to work with the guy that tells me to go for it, but how do I know that he's not telling me what I want to hear?
Well, that's a good point. If you have one telling you one thing, one telling you another, either one's wanting to give you good news and the other one saying the right news. So usually what happens is this: we use different software to find out if you can retire, but we got to take a lot in consideration. This person wants to retire at a very young age, but as we know, John, people are living longer and longer. This person most likely will be retired longer than he worked. Okay, so you got to make sure. It depends on what they're projecting this income from. Is it 4%, 5%? So these are things that they would really need to set up a time to come in and let us do an analysis with some strict figures in there, so to see if it's real or fake,
Okay.
Because it is important, because this is something you don't want to mess up, because you retire now, and then if we have a downturn in the market, it depends on what was he going to put him in the market. Was he projecting it at something that had a growth or aggressive portfolio? So we got to look at so many things. So if you're about to retire or think about retiring, you might want to come in, and we have different software programs that we can show you pretty good if it's going to work or not.
Yeah, and it's pretty good for people to come in and sit with you, because if they're not sure, obviously this gentleman or woman who submitted this question is not sure of whether to stay retired or to keep working, you're going to be able to show them pretty much in black and white if that is a good course of action, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be, hey, do you want to retire? If you want to retire, let's see. And then I'm going to be upfront with this person. I'm going to say, you know what, you need to work another, and that's happened to me many times. People come in and say, I want to retire. And then I'll look at what they have, and I'm saying, guess what? You can retire for a few years, but you're not going to retire. So you have to, it depends on how much you have. It depends on your risk tolerance. It depends on the different vehicles that we're going to really put in place for each person.
Okay, excellent. So you can get a second opinion and come in and sit with the coach, and he'll evaluate exactly what you have. Next question comes in. I'm 62 years old. My wife wants me to retire and start collecting Social Security, but I'm not ready to retire, and I honestly don't think we have enough money saved up. What is your recommendation how we should go about this? I'd like to get on the same page with my wife without indicting World War III.
Yeah, well, you both need to be on the same page.
Sure.
Okay, they need to be on the same page. If they're not on the same page, then it is going to have World War III, because you have to, it's just not Social Security. I mean, full Social Security right now is over 66, like 66 in 9 months, depending on when you were born. So I like to at least wait till that time to turn on Social Security, because every year you wait, it increases like at 8%. So it's a big increase. And so that's one thing I'm going to do. Is it's something that we're going to do some Social Security where we turn on hers and maybe take hers for a little bit and let his build up. So there's different things we can do with Social Security, but we want to make sure that we have a plan in place that will suffice both of them being retired. Because remember, if he retires too early and that's his main source of income, and then he passes and the spouse will get lose her income and pick up his. So we want to have him turn it on at a little later date, I would think.
Okay, so Social Security is something that you have different strategies as well that can help the investor that's viewing us today. It's not just take it at 62 or 65 or 67.
No, we sure do. We have different strategies, and that's another thing that we get together. That's part of the income planning process. We talk about, does your financial advisor, do they have an income plan in place for you? Many of the times they don't, John. They just have what we call, here, we'll take out some money in this account. When this one runs out, then we'll start with this one. So you want to make sure you have a plan in place. And most advisors, the problem with it that I run into all the time is that they're in the accumulation phase. They haven't made any changes since when they were working and then when they retired. And it's so important to make sure that you have someone understand the difference between accumulation and really harvesting, taking your money and growing it, and now taking your growth of your money and taking income out properly from it.
All right. Well, our last question says, I am 50 years old and would like to work another 10 years. What would you recommend I do in regards to my investments over the next decade so I am adequately prepared to retire?
Well, what I would do with something like that, I would do dollar cost averaging, and I would really want to take the money that they have and put it in a portfolio that aligns to their goals. Because right now they might have something that doesn't have their risk tolerance might be totally off. So I want to check their risk to see what their number is, because everyone has has a different number for risk. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're in a portfolio, and I would give them a little bit more risk right now as they're working and gradually reduce it 10 years from now. It will be reduced each year until it's a little bit desired portfolio, and at the end of 10 years, a little bit more risk now. And that's called like a frontier adjusted portfolio. And that's what we would do if they're going to still work and put money in it.
Okay, Coach. Well, this was excellent. You gave our viewers a wealth of information, and we do appreciate you tuning in today. Give Alfie a call at that number appearing on the screen. Meet with him in one of his offices. Get a second opinion. We know a lot of you have questions. If you do, submit them through the website, savingtheinvestor.com. Thank you.